Hi there, I'm Lana Monday Emmett, and welcome back to another podcast edition of Can You Really Think and Grow Rich with businessman, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, Ramy El-Batarawi. How are we, Ramy?
I'm doing great. How are you, Lana?
I'm doing well. So Ramy has been a follower of Napoleon Hill's philosophy of the principles from Think and Grow Rich. And these are principles that are almost a century old. So today we're discussing chapter 9 in Ramy's book, Can You Really Think and Grow Rich, where he talks about his big comeback. So Ramy, can you maybe give us a little bit on your backstory leading into your big comeback?
Yeah. So what I love about Think and Grow Rich is you could use it all the time, and I wanted to show that that principle is not only good for one success or one, and every failure is a temporary failure. So the first part of the whole book was the different successes, different challenges, different goals I had, and how I achieved those successes. And then the chapter just before that, it was the last time that I did go broke, and it was about as rock bottom as you can get. And I wanted to show again, because I started out a book that's showing all the alibis, just like Napoleon Hill showed in the back of his book, all the alibis people use not to succeed. So the chapter before, we talked about all the possible alibis that I could have used from being in the streets and broke again, and age, and even dying, and all kind of things. And everybody doubted I could ever make it again. And the criticism that I got and everything was more than anybody else would ever get. So the comeback of this chapter 9, kind of like shows that no matter what, it kind of proves out that the alibis that people can come up with are really invalid. If they really apply all the principles that I put in my book, or Napoleon Hill puts in his book, that they can come back from anything, and that doesn't matter what age, or doesn't matter what it is, if it's from death or whatever. And Colonel Sanders was 66 before he came back and built his wealth. And I've seen a lot of people come back from nothing, but they have to have those principles in hand, and that's what chapter 9 was all about. Is me then coming back from only having $21 in my pocket, being in a mental institution 3 times, and having no money, no plan, no nothing. So this was the start of. So I find the last part of the book is to be the most important. Chapter 9 and the next 2 chapters of the comeback is actually more important than even the beginning of the book, because a lot of people write a lot of books about starting, building, and being successful. And I think this last part is about the 4th, 5th time that I went broke, and this was the worst of hitting rock bottom, and then coming back, and how fast I was once I decided to come back. I was able to make it back. To even higher levels. So I was coming back at a higher level than I was before. So this first chapter, we talk about that. I had goals when I was, I lost my house because I went broke. I lost my airplane. I lost everything I had, and I lost businesses. So in this chapter, I talk about how, I thought of many ideas and what I went through, and I tried a lot of ideas. The moment I was clear thinking and made a decision, I was going to make everything back in 5 years, get my house back in 6 months, do a whole bunch of things. I set out goals, just like Napoleon Hill's kind of explains. You have to set goals and also put a time limit, because then those goals run forever. So having a time limit kind of pushes you to take action right away, so you make those things happen. So chapter 9, really does talk about a lot of this, and I put different keys in there also, and you go see, and then there's pictures in there. I did get my house back within that 6 months. And I did start and working into a lot of different businesses until I found a business that made a lot of sense, and I got people to believe in me and reinvest in me. And again, there's examples of how you need to shift, because the business that finally gave me the first foothold of launching it didn't start out the same way as it ended. I started out with a company called Yayo, and car sharing was really big, or ride sharing was really big. So I wanted to do a meta search like Kayak of all the apps in one app. So I raised all this money to do that. And as I was building the app, at the end, Uber and Lyft didn't want to share their APIs to make that app work. So I lost millions of dollars building this app, and with Uber and Lyft shunning me. But again, I show the example. All you need to do is shift. I didn't give up. I didn't let people lose their money. I shift. I figured out. I sat there. What does Uber and Lyft really do want then? And at that time, and still today, they were short of drivers and with suitable cars.
Right.
So I shifted the company to create a platform where I could rent cars to drivers who wanted to drive in the gig economy. They couldn't afford a car, they couldn't buy a car, but they can come and rent a car from us and drive for the gig economy. And that became a huge success. And I took that company public. And during the way, I also there was a struggle there because of my past history. We talked about Genesis Intermedia and the fight with the government. It usually takes 3 months to go public, but it took me almost 2 years to convince them. They rejected my application so many
Oh
times
no.
until I finally convinced them. Again, persistence won, and I was able to take that company public, and that started launching my comeback. So
Right.
that was chapter 9, and I do end up with a reflection where I says, the things that you do, does touch a lot of lives, and it changes a lot of lives. And because of that company, I created, jobs for thousands of people, not only inside the company, but the money that they could generate to feed their families and stuff that were underprivileged, that were living in Compton here, that didn't have the money or the credit to create jobs. And the investors who invested in the company, and even when they were public, and the money that they made. So everything that you do does affect other people around you. So you
Right.
want to do things in a positive way and never give up. I mean, there's and again, I talked about in an earlier chapter a little bit that you have to think of your investors first. And it could have easily, when that first idea came and the money I raised to do the meta search didn't work, I could have easily abandoned that and told everybody, hey, you lost money. And I figured out the shifting of supplying cars to Uber Lyft. I could have done that on my own and burnt all the investors, but I kept all the investors and kept it in that same company, and they won. And it's a lot better to really care about who people invest in you, because they will invest in you in the future, because the money shouldn't be the most important thing.
Right.
It should be how you deal with people, what you do, and the money is a byproduct. So it's and I think it's in something Think and Grow Rich. I remember I always had, and it kept me pretty honest and for a very long time, because it said in Think and Grow Rich, nothing lasts unless it's built on truth and honesty.
Right.
That was a very important quote that people don't miss. Unless you build it on truth and honesty, it doesn't last. That's why Bernie Madoff blew up, or anybody that is a con man don't make it, because it's not built on truth and honesty. But you build a company or anything on truth and honesty, it'll last, because there's no holes nobody can really poke at. Even if they attack you, you built it on strong foundations. So that was basically chapter 9. So I was really excited to kind of like look from that shift from where I ended up, and by the end of chapter 9, I was back to where I had my house back, my cars, and I was back to basically being a millionaire at that time in a very short period of time. It was less than a year that all that happened.
So going back to talking about shift, you mentioned shift a few times.
Right.
How is that in relation to perseverance? How do you relate those two?
Well, again, perseverance is great because you have a goal. Okay, my goal was to build this great company around this ride sharing thing.
Right.
So that's perseverance to do it, and you're gonna get a lot of obstacles and stuff. The shifting is when you find something is not really working, but it's still the same goal and stuff, is to adjust what you're doing so it does work.
Right.
So you do achieve the goals that you're wanting, because you might be doing it wrong and you don't know it, or some obstacle might come in the way. So shifting is a way of just doing things a little bit different to achieve the same thing that you want at the end of the day.
Right. Well, thanks so much for sharing that with us. This has been a great discussion. And for those of you who are interested in getting a copy of Ramy's book, I've got a little reflection here trying to get it so you can see it right. Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? You can get it from canyourreallythinkandgrowrich.com. And right now, Ramy has that paired with a copy of the original 1937 version of Think and Grow Rich. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ramy. No. And we'll be back next time with, I guess we'll be on chapter 10. Yep. Chapter 10.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.